All right, welcome back, everybody. And as promised, I have Tiffany Rosenbaum here from Rosenbaum Realty Group and all the other companies. She has more companies than I have suits. So Tiff, you're a powerhouse at in the property management industry. If for those of the few that do not know who you are, give us a kind of just a kind of overview of how you got into property management and how you started your companies.
I think it was by accident, just like a lot of people when it comes to my property management company. In 2009, 2010, I moved down to Arizona and my husband and I started a business, but it was not going well. So we ended up on food storage and it was really rough, not knowing how to feed my kids, my kid at that time, and not being able to have the AC or heat on in my home. It was really difficult. And I was sitting in my living room. My dad had flown in to see how we were doing with no food in the fridge. They went to the grocery store and got us food. And he realized that Arizona had a really good market at this time. And he said, I don't care what you do, you got to figure out how to get into real estate. And I was like, I'm going to figure out how to get into real estate when I can't feed my child. I was like, you're crazy. But I didn't say that. I just listened. And one night I was sitting across the table from this guy that I knew with his wife, and he was talking about real estate. And I was like, how do you get into it? And so we discussed, and he said, well, you got to find someone that can loan to you. And I was like, okay, I don't have money. So I found an individual that would loan to me. And Daniel and I actually started to invest. And when we started to invest, we realized there was a property next to some of ours that were like not doing well. So we would message the owner and say, hey, is there any way we can put a for rent sign up and try to help you out here because it's hurting our rentability. And so we realized there was a business here and we realized we could help people make money because we knew that side of it as the mistakes we've made. And we knew that side of it. So that's how we started the business and realized this is where we need to transition all the way in to build a brokerage and real estate firm.
Wow.
So that's
So,
that, guys.
so started off as an investor and then found out that people mismanage their properties if they try to manage themselves and create a management firm.
Yes, because like a lot of people have contractors walk off on them. And that's what happened with our first investor. He paid a contractor 10,000 and they never came back. And we decided, hey, just let us help you. And at that time, he had other properties we didn't know about. And all of a sudden we started building because he had a portfolio of over 50 units. And so we brought them all on over time.
And if you don't mind asking, how many units do you guys manage on single family right now?
We managed 517 single family on that side of the business.
Okay. So, take me through before we get into how to put your business on autopilot. 'Cause I think it's amazing. Every time I talk to you, you're like, yeah, I don't work in my business. I work on the business. But so that was the hub and you started the property management firm. How many units did you have under management before you created the maintenance company?
Oh, I did that one wrong. I think when I started it, I wanted to start it because of the issues we were having with contractors just walk off, just not finish the job, not have the quality. But it was about 150 and we could do it, but it was like we weren't making money at it. It was just a break even. It was like, hey, just to get us by and help us out with the
Just to
maintenance.
have control, huh?
Just to have control, because at that point in 2000, it was 2010. At that point, there were a lot of contractors that were walking off jobs, and so we wanted to bring it in-house. And so I partnered with someone. I found someone that would give me the ability to use their license on our company and not really have to pay him much, and
So you
it
need
was
a
a
GC,
win-win.
you need like a GC
Mhm.
license.
In Arizona, you have to be licensed, bonded, and insured. At this point, I'm licensed, bonded, and insured, but I had to find someone first to be able to do it.
Sure. And so if somebody was listening to this and they're thinking about creating their own maintenance company, what do you what would you do differently? Like, would you have more doors at that time? Would you
I
what?
would have looked at my P&L and said, where do I spend the most money? Because what I hired first was like a handyman slash HVAC lady. She was great, but I think I would have, after looking at my P&L and understanding numbers so much more, I would have hired a plumber first. Because that's the number one thing we use is a plumber, and HVAC is second. But I didn't know my numbers really well back then. And so I was just hiring to try to fill a void.
So, all right. So now you also have the short-term rental company. And when did you start that bad boy?
We started that about a year ago and it has just taken off. We have a website. We do actually midterm to short term. So it's amazing because our units stay occupied longer and insurance companies actually pay for the people to stay in there. So a lot of times we do displaced insured. And then we open up the calendar for the shorter when we have availability.
Now, if your management firm wasn't running um, at like top end, would you be able to create these other companies?
No, you would create chaos. I think you have to have a team in place that can handle things and handle the day to day, and you have to have a lot of trust in them. And I think that was probably my biggest downfall when I started business. I didn't trust anybody, to be honest. I was like, oh, no one's going to care about it as much as I do.
Yeah.
I'm the business owner. I'm here. And so I micromanaged. I did everything wrong. I mean, you name it, I probably did it. And so we lost a lot of good talent that we didn't have to because I was learning to be a business owner at the same time.
Yeah, you weren't letting go to grow, so to speak, right?
Nope.
So
I was OCD.
taking,
Let me keep a hold of
yeah,
that neck. I wanted it.
you were the choke point. Everything
I
was going
was.
through you, and your team. You were probably you're probably having your team feel like they can't make any decisions without you making a decision, right?
Oh yeah. And when you micromanage, the how you do it is, hey, was this done today? And they say yes, but then you go verify because you don't trust them. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, they didn't do it how I wanted them to do it. So now I got to correct them.
Wow.
So I have to tell them they lied to me essentially. And so it doesn't create any trust or growth or empowerment in a company. And so that's where I struggled as a leader for a while.
There's a book. Liz Wiseman's the name of the author, and I'm trying to think of the name. I always call it memoirs, and I know it's not the name memoirs, it's something else. But she talks about that kind of leadership style and how it's a diminishing style, right? So you diminish people, and then over time they leave or they stay, but they don't do anything unless you make
Mhm.
basically you manage through them, right? Just like we hate our investor clients managing the properties through us, your team hates that you manage the business through them, right?
And what's sad about that, the good people will leave, the
And the
ones that
bad people
can't get other
stay.
jobs. Yeah. Have
Yep.
you read the new golden standard?
I have
If
not.
you haven't read it, it's amazing. It's about Ritz-Carlton. It's all about this empowering your team, feedback, making sure that the employees feel like they can give feedback. We do monthly feedback now. I want to hear how our employees are doing. And we do feedback on our managers. We let the employees give feedback on their managers and how they're doing.
Do you use
It's
uh, do
empowering.
you use any tech for that? Is that like a tiny pulse or anything like that?
I don't right now. It's just Google form. My SWAT team that we call them, our SWAT team, handles that as of right now. It's been cheaper to do it that way. We'll probably implement after we get Help Scout up 100% and things like that.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about this. So you're an owner now of three businesses, or co-founder or owner, and you have three businesses. They all tie in. They all dovetail nicely with each other. But you're doing your own thing now, right? You're creating a tell me a little bit about where you're going to, and then I want to talk about how you're able to do that. So tell me a little bit about your new podcast and your new venture.
It's all about unleashing the ultimate life and how every individual can stand in their own 2 feet and literally have an enjoyment throughout life. I'm telling stories of people that because sometimes when you look at a business owner, they're like, oh, it's easy for them. They had no struggles. It's like it just comes easy. So that's why I don't do it. But as I've talked to these people and really told their story, it's so interesting that 9 times out of 10, someone that has created their ultimate life, they have gone through struggle. They've been grateful for the struggle, and then they come out on the other side. And so I am speaking a lot right now. I'm going on podcasts right now, and I'm developing my brand, which is Tiffany Rosenbaum, Unleashing Your Ultimate Life.
Well, I know you've talked to you. I've talked to you offline, and you've talked to me about the types of people that are on your on that you're interviewing. Some people have been in prison before. Some people are homeless. So it's amazing collection of individuals that have overcome some main incredible obstacles. So we'll at the end we'll kind of plug that. So you're basically you are able to do this. You're able to chase your passion and build something and give back to people. So let's talk about how you're able to do that. So you told me you talked about your SWAT team. So let's talk about that. Like I'm assuming step one is go out and building the SWAT team. Is that
Mhm.
kind of step one of this deal?
Yeah, so I look outside of the property management industry because I do feel sometimes we get so in our box and hey, we're property management. I have to hit these numbers. I have to hit this profit margin. But in reality, if you go to Walmart, Amazon, and see how they're running things and their profit margins, if you read simple numbers and things like that, their profit margins are not these 40% because they're putting back into it. So as I read and I researched and I talked to, $100 million people, billionaires, I was like, okay, what are you doing different? Because I don't want to be stuck in the day to day trying to hit these margins that put me into the day to day. I want to build businesses, create relationships with people. And so as I talked to them, I realized I need a team that does the auditing, creates my processes, and makes sure they audits my processes on a daily basis, develops my numbers in a way that I can see it all in one place for all my companies. So at any given time, I can see the KPIs on a daily basis. I can see my numbers, anything that I want right there on my phone. I have an app that I can see. So the first thing I did, because that sounds like all grand, right? But the first thing I did, I said,
Oh, it
I need
sounds
a
so
process
simple.
architect. Oh, it sound, yeah, I wish. But I spoke on this at a conference actually. The first person I hired was a process architect because I realized if I sit and I create processes every single day, that's my job. That's what I'm gonna do. And I was like, I can't do that. So I talked to Lead Simple. They were like, hey, bring it on. I'm like, hold up, let me hire someone first. No matter what it costs, let me hire someone because it's gonna help us get better. So I hired my first, and his name's Jonathan, and a great guy. And it was interesting because we developed a really good working relationship. So he would give me feedback.
So
And
just
at
curious, I
first,
just want to make sure I get this right. You hired him full time, not as a 1099, as hey, I'm going to do this project. That right there is a huge difference between you and me even because I hired Errol, but Errol was a contractor that worked for us for a year or two, and then he moved on. And guess who became the process guy after that? I did. And I
I
gave
did.
myself a job. Whereas if I would have hired Jonathan, I never would have had gone back to that. So that's a big aha for me right now as we're talking about this. So okay, so Jonathan now becomes your,
Mm.
what'd you call
And
him?
then and he was my process architect. That's what I
Process
hired him to
architect.
do.
Okay.
He came from PlayStation. He had done this for PlayStation. I was like, okay, you know what? If he's done for PlayStation, I can bring him into my company. And so he came in, and then I realized he had a lot of other talents, meaning company culture. Because he came to me one day and said, Tiff, I said, and when he came to me, I said, okay, this is one of those conversations that I need to just shut my mouth and realize he's going to give me feedback that's not going to feel too good. And he said, Tiff, we need to work on company culture. And I said, I totally agree. And he said, here's a plan, and this is what I think we should do. And I said, run with it. Just run with it. Have fun with it. Let's get it going. And so he implemented my processes and my culture. But at the same time, I realized really quickly with my personality and the DIM, if you do culture indexing or
Disc.
anything like that, the disc, you realize if you're a D, you have no patience. And so I realized I needed to hire another one because I wanted to turn the sailboat. Because I think property management, when you have a company, it's a sailboat. And when you turn it, you can't turn it on a dime. It doesn't work that way. And so I realized I needed another process architect that could really hone in on it and get my processes up quickly. And then I realized, and so we started off with that, the
So
culture,
you
the
doubled
process
down. You
architect.
had you had two process architects.
Because when
Interesting.
you develop a process, all of a sudden, if they're not over it and they can't make sure it's happening on a daily basis, then all of a sudden I'm putting myself in a job. And if I'm putting myself in a job, I can't look at the numbers and plan and goal and see where we want to go. And I'll prove a point. This year alone, we've grown 120 units in 2 months. And we're about to grow. We're going to double our company this year. And all because of the people I put in place, and I've taken myself out of the company.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you put people in place to build systems. Because if you don't have systems, whether you use Lead Simple or Asana or and
Mhm.
Aptly or any of these other ones, you have to put good data in, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. And you
Oh,
have to
so
have a
true.
good process, and then you can automate some stuff. But if you're doing everything and you don't, and you're still doing paper checklists, and you have maybe one piece of your system automated and you're doing all these handoffs, you're never going to get to the point where you can grow that business, because the system, and it's not sexy at all, right? Systems are not super sexy. They're painstaking. It's slow. You're kind of just going through the process. But then when it's done, now I'm guessing all your team is doing is kind of reviewing it quarterly or biannually.
We do daily. So we have daily audits. So part of my SWAT team are 4 people. It's my 2 architects with Jonathan Beam over culture as well. And then I have a daily auditor. Anything that enters the system is audited. So leases, have you ever had someone that put in a freaking admin fee to rent? So a fee that should go to the property management company, but they accidentally hit a wrong button and it goes to rent. I hear that all the time that it happens. So every lease, every PMA is always audited by my auditor. And then I also have my data analysis guy. And so that's where we analyze all the data. And so we have daily audits. The KPIs are handed to actually team members on a daily basis, so they can see where they're measuring on a daily basis, and kind of it can work on getting their goal easier. Because a lot of times when we do KPIs, we go backwards and say, hey, I'm meeting with you today for last week. Well, you didn't hit it. Well, how are we implementing it to empower them to hit it? And so we actually give them their KPIs on a daily basis for their weekly goals.
All right. So a lot to unpack there, but let's talk about what I want to know. Like, I'm sure people listening to this right now, and like, "Wait, she was making a lot of money, and uh, she's making a lot of money. How can you afford somebody from PlayStation? How can you afford 2 process folks? Like, how are you able to do that? Because you still have to have property
So
managers, and you have to have assistants, and you have to have leasing
mhm.
agents, you have to have maintenance coordinators. So how would you able to invest in people who are really, in theory, not adding to the bottom line, right? They add into the bottom line different
Yep.
ways.
They add to the bottom line in different ways. And that's where the mindset has to change. Like we look at, we're told, depending on the companies, we're told you should be at 30 to 40%. I was about 40 something percent, 43.5, whatever percent profit margin. Well, I realized when I read simple numbers and I started researching, I was like, that means I'm not putting money back into the company to really benefit and really grow. Because if I'm so honed in on the profit margin, I'm not putting money into the systems to be able to grow the business. And I'm kind of holding it hostage. So after reading it, I said, I'm going to take my profit margin down as much as possible to develop the systems and develop the team I need so we can actually grow.
Step back for 2 steps
So,
forward. Yeah.
and you have to do that because I feel like at about 500 units, you get held hostage.
All your
About
systems break.
500,
Yeah.
you have to either go down in profit margin to grow, or you have to sit where you want to sit. You can't do both. You're going to either sit and decline a little bit, or you're going to put money back into it to develop what you need to grow. And like 500 it breaks, and then about 750 and 1,000. So each level you got to be willing to break it, put more money into it, and develop it. And so right now at 500, I'm really developing the processes and the teams and putting the money back into it, no matter what it takes, to get to the next level that I want to get to.
How how many units or how much revenue were you bringing in when you hired your first process person?
Or, well, I did that wrong. I should have done it before that, but about 1.2.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Okay.
if
A
I
little
were
over
to do it
$1 million.
differently, I would have done it from day one. If I were to do it differently, I would have done it from day one and put all the money back in. Because I was already on food storage. I was already poor as a duck. I mean, I couldn't even freaking feed my child.
That's
So
how
if I
important you
knew
think that role
anything,
is, huh?
I think the BDM role, bringing in, making sure marketing and branding and the processes and someone behind it, I do. That has changed my company 100-fold. 100-fold.
So BDM to bring the business, process guy to make sure the business funnels, and everybody does the same thing always, and it can grow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So So, all right, let's talk a little bit about those KPIs now. So, Walmart is famous for literally doing hourly or even by the minute KPIs. Like they're funneling numbers and looking at this stuff like almost, every minute. So you're looking at daily key performance
Daily.
indicators.
Uh-huh.
And so
We do daily.
what are some of the numbers that you're looking at daily?
I can pull it up on my phone actually. So, renewal rate, that's one that I want to know compared to how many tenants are supposed to be moving out or going month to month. What is our percentage of renewals? What is our, hold up, off the top of my head.
That's okay.
We have a
So,
lot.
so as a CEO, okay, so now let me ask you this. This would be a good question here. You had to learn new skills to become the CEO of the business because one of the challenges that I've seen most business owners is that they're, especially property management, they started from the beginning, they built the business, they wore all the hats, and they kind of self-sabotage sometimes because they really don't know what to do next. Like I'm literally having this challenge at VPM. Like I'm ready to, like all the hats that I wore are now being worn by somebody else. And now I have to take that next level up. I have to level up and become a CEO. And I'm not really exactly sure what that's supposed to do. So sometimes I go back into working tickets or building processes. So how did you like, level up and how did you just and what do you do now? What is a CEO for Rosenbaum, Realty and the maintenance company and all that stuff? What are you doing on a day to day?
I look at numbers a lot, KPIs a lot, like down to a day. We do daily reconciliations as well because I want to know when there's a problem before there's a problem. I don't want the owner getting wind of anything before there's a problem because we're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect at all. No company is. But as I researched Amazon and Walmart and the big companies, I realized they put a lot of money back in, and that's why they were able to grow the way they grew. And I realized as I read, because like this year, my goal is 52 books in 52 weeks. And as I read about Ritz Carlton, the owners, it gives me more of a mindset of a CEO because I do think, like you said, I got stuck in that for so long. And I'm still trying to, what we do as, because we call ourselves, if you talk to anybody, we call ourselves property managers. We actually, by the words we use, we tell ourselves we are the property manager. So I have changed that in my own company. And if anybody asked me, I said, I own an asset management company. And I have asset managers. And I was talking on a podcast yesterday and they said, wait, what? You're not a property manager? I said, no, I own an asset management company because what we tell ourselves is what we become. And
Agreed.
so if we're not careful, we're already telling ourselves we're a property manager, when in reality, that's not why we started the company. But we don't know how to get out of that. We put ourselves in the weed and we stick ourselves there because guess what? It feels comfortable because we can do it. It's an easier checklist. And so until we pull ourselves out and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to figure out what I need to do. I'm going to research. I'm going to find out what other companies do, and taking ourselves out of even the property management game and going, what is this company? What did Amazon do? What did Walmart do? What did, all these big companies do to grow and develop the systems? Because what you talk about is the systems. And it's interesting how at every level they have to change. And like Ritz Carlton, I'm reading that one right now. It's empowering, and it's very uncomfortable to become a true CEO. I think anybody would say that if they weren't used to it, because it's very uncomfortable to me. I've never really truly liked conflict, and I've had to get really good at conflict.
So yeah, so talk a little bit about what does a CEO do now? So obviously you're looking at numbers. Now, what happens if a number is red? What like it's not green, it's going poorly. What's the
So
action
on a
that the
daily
CEO
basis, it's
takes?
red or green, and
Yeah.
some of mine I put blue or red. But I figure out where's it broken. So I will go to the director and I'll go, okay, what's going on? Where are we at? What's the issue? And then we have to dial it in sometimes. If it's just red on one day, I
Not a
might
big deal.
watch it for a little bit to see if it's going to continue that way. But also renewal rates trend to move outs and things like that. So I watch those numbers really a lot to make sure that I know where
So,
we're moving.
so so at that point though, you're directing your team. So are you telling the team what to do, or are they coming up with potential
They
solutions?
come up with solutions.
So
They
you're
come
not
up with solutions.
you're not the answer. You're not the answer girl anymore. You're not
I'm
the
not the answer.
superhero.
Yeah, we do have a level up meetings that I'm a part of to
Okay.
make sure that I know what's going on, but they have Tuesday meetings I'm not a part of. They have morning huddles. I'll try to jump in every once in a while because I do like to motivate my team and they love to see me on, because when I get on, it's exciting to tell them how amazing they are and how much work they do. Because really, truly, any company, it's the team behind them. Like, no company is successful without their team. Elon Musk would say that. Jeff Bezos would say that. The team is what elevates the company. And I truly believe that.
All right. So what else? What else do you do? So you read a book. You're reading a book a week, and you're looking at numbers. I'm guessing you got a
Mhm.
couple more hours. So what else? So are you the one that's the culture builder, or is you have somebody that does that now?
Jonathan does the cultural building. So he puts competitions together. He emails forms for feedback. Like, I'm not over culture
Yeah.
because I'm a D and I realize this, I'll put something out there, but I'm not gonna, I can finish a lot of things that I want to,
You're not the
but I
feely
also
you're
want to
not the
move.
feely good type of person. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, let's get done. And so Jonathan is a C. And so even when we're on, when we're talking, because we meet because he's over culture and I want to make sure I do know what's going on with numbers and everything, because that actually helps our numbers. And so we'll meet and I'm like, okay, you're a C and that's C and I'm a DI. So we're opposites. So what do I need to do? And I even say it, what do I need to do to make sure you feel comfortable to open up to me? Because an SC is not going to open up to a DI real easy.
Yeah.
And so we have to be willing. I feel like in business, psychology plays a huge role. And I didn't realize how big, how important the disc profile was until I had my entire company do it. And I was like,
That makes a
wow.
lot of sense. Hey, when you see it, like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I did a disc analysis for a product management company just as a goof. You know, they asked me if I'd do it for them, and so I got all their team's disc, and I basically on the phone, I'm on a Zoom with all of them, and I said, okay, who's this so and so? Okay, you're this, and this, and 9 out of 10, everybody's like spot on. The one person said, "There's no way," and then the owner called me, goes, "Oh, that person was lying. They were completely like you said." So I was able to basically tell everybody about their personalities without even knowing them, just through their disc. So I think it's amazing as well. I'm a big proponent of personality profile, whether you use disc or any of the other ones. All
What's
right.
interesting about that, I thought it was a waste of money at first. I was like, I'm not gonna pay that because to do it for a company can cost a lot of money. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a waste of money. Come on, I can figure out people. And then it was like, oh, this is actually really important. And it's
Yeah.
changed things. Yeah.
And then I'm guessing so the other big part of it is strategy, or are you the one that's setting the strategy for the three businesses?
Yes. So, well, my husband does do a lot for Sunny Days, but I'm over the strategy. And so we'll sit down. And I am a big believer that two brains are better than one and three brains are better than one. So what we do, we have a level up meeting. We'll discuss issues. We'll discuss where we want to go, goals. And we sit down every quarter. We talk about rocks and all that to make sure where we're going and what is our goal for the 1 year, what is our goal for 3 years, even 5 years. We want to plan out and go, hey, are we making stepping stones to get to where we want?
So if someone's listening right now and they're like, man, I would love to hire a process person. I guess what does that cost? How much are you paying somebody as to be a process implementer or whatever you call it? What'd you call them? A
Process architect, because
architect. I like that
it's
better.
yeah,
I used to call them
because it's a little bit
implementation
different.
specialist, but process
Mhm.
architect is great. I love that. I'm gonna steal that one. So
Yeah, no, that's what we call them.
what kind of salary is that? Like a range? Is that like a
So,
$50,000, $100,000? What is that about?
no, so we on an hourly rate, it's in between 8 and 13 bucks an hour. I started them at 8, but I realized very quickly that I really valued them. And to me personally, I felt like 8 was underpaid. So
This
I
is
raised them very
obviously
quickly.
you hire remote. Like this is not somebody in the state.
Yes.
This is not somebody in
Sorry,
Arizona.
yes. No.
Okay.
So
All right.
I would recommend them come see you or come look at VPM. Like, hiring remote, you can get some really good
I
talent.
got to tell
Now,
you. the whole time I'm talking to you about this process architect guy, I never assumed that he was in the States. And here I am. I own a VA company, right? I own VPM Solutions, and I never even thought about that. I always thought they had to be. So you're literally finding process architects basically in overseas.
So my entire SWAT team is overseas. My process architects, my audit, and my data analysis people
Your
are
culture guy
overseas.
is overseas too.
Overseas as well. Mhm. So,
All right, I got it. So this is unbelievable. So
yeah.
instead of worrying about hiring somebody for 100, $150,000 a year, you literally can hire a VA, a remote team member,
Mhm.
the right guy, right? You have to do a disc
Mhm.
profile on them because they need to be a high C, I would think, right? To be process
Yes,
architect. Yep.
he's a high C.
Do
But
they
my
have to know
data
property
analysis
management?
guys, they don't know. They have to know. You can train them on that part. Now, some people I do want them to have some understanding about property management. My data analysis guy, my audit people, and my process architects. One of them did. He worked for a property management company for a couple of years, but one of them had no information about a property management company beforehand.
So if I'm sitting here, I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, man, I need that process architect thing just sounds too good to be true. That's why I kept asking you, how much money were you making? How much, profit? Again, it never even dawned on me. So basically it's 10 to 12 bucks an hour, let's call it. If you got in
Yeah.
somebody who literally can just do your own, create the processes. And
Mhm.
now, I mean, when you started this, there was probably very little automation. Right. Lead Simple was
Mhm.
basically just for CRM back then, right? Zero automation.
Mhm.
And so now with Lead Simple and Aptly and Asana and Zapier and all these other ones,
Mhm.
which we're a big fan of Lead Simple.
Yep.
They're great. They're built for property management. So if you're haven't looked at Lead Simple, I endorse them. I like them. Or Aptly, both of those two. Check those two out. So
Mhm.
so basically you found somebody, they documented your systems, and then they were able to build it. Then you basically built, I'm guessing you built it on checklists first, and now you built it all automated on Lead Simple.
So, yes, I had binders, but it was outdated a little bit. You know how we used to always have binders? It was all documented, but how many people actually look at the stupid binders? Nobody. I mean, I'm sorry. They would come into my office and go, Tiff, how do you do this? Tiff, how do you do this? I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't get anything done today.
Yeah.
So I gave them those, but what happened was we came on with Lead Simple after I hired my first, and actually I had Lead Simple train them on Lead Simple, and then we have one meeting and I tell them exactly what I want. I just throw up on them exactly the process I want. They record the video and then they go build it out and they implement
You
it.
want to hear
And then
something
I approve
cool?
it.
We have Lead Simple training on the VPM platform. You can actually hire somebody off of VPM that's Lead Simple certified.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
That's
It
pretty
went
cool.
live. It went live in where are we? We're in March. Yeah, it went live. So we're recording this in early March, and it really went live today. The training went live today. The day we were
Congrats.
recording it. Yeah. So thank you for that. So
That's
amazing.
amazing because if you can bring people in that already know the softwares, it does help on the cost that it takes to train people. And if they're
Yeah.
already certified
And the
on it,
speed.
wow.
Yep. Yep. All right. So we got a couple of minutes here before we hit break and then we go to lightning round. So I want to talk just a little bit more about your new venture. What'd you call it again? It's
It's Tiffany Rosenbaum and then Unleashing Your Ultimate Life.
Unleashing
And the
Your Ultimate.
podcast should be coming out in a couple months, but it's really neat. It's amazing to be a part of these people's journeys and talk to them about it. I mean, I'm interviewing people that are worth so much money, and then people that have gone through you name it, they've gone
Hell and
through
High
it.
Water. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I actually journeyed Texas. I went from Houston to Austin and Dallas and interviewed a bunch. And it was incredible because really any successful person really goes through a lot of the ringer. You don't see the brutal emotional struggle that they go through.
Yeah. What's the old
And
saying? Everybody, it's a overnight, he's an overnight success, 20 years in the making overnight
I
success. Right?
wish.
Are you seeing that more true? Is that more true than ever before, the 20-year overnight success? People that
Yeah,
grinded. 20 years and like, oh, look, they just made it. It's like, yeah, I just made it. Yeah, it's been 20 years and I lost my life savings twice, right?
But they're willing to take risks and they're willing to go through, I call it hell. Go through
Yeah.
hell to make sure they get their dreams. And that's the difference. Like they have perseverance that is like no other. And they really take a hone in on their team. Everybody I talk to, the relationships they talk about, the relationships with their team and how important that is. And I think a lot of people forget that when they start in business, but it's the team that's going to elevate your company. It's not you, because you can't do it by yourself. No one can.
Yeah, I'd say as you're listening to this, I think the Tiff is kind of beating that one down, beating that horse, right? Like if you get one thing out of it is the team. You're only as good as your team, and the team can actually be low cost, high skilled labor that are overseas. Tiff, we're
Mhm.
going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back with the lightning
Sounds
round.
good.
All right, we'll be right back, everybody. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to put Tiffany in the lightning round, our favorite part of the podcast. All right, Tiff, are you ready to be in the lightning round?
I'm ready.
All right. What is one of the stupidest things you did when you started your business?
Oh man. If you want to know the truth, I set up every owner with a separate bank account because we didn't know and someone told me this is how it had to be. So every owner had a separate bank account. And then we allowed tenants to go directly to the bank to deposit it. But then the bank would like lose the money. And then it was a mess. It was called chaos.
Oh man, you know what? I'm glad somebody did something almost as bad as me. My biggest thing was I didn't commingle funds, but what I did is I allowed the resident to pay the owner directly their rent, and then the owner paid me my management fee.
I've
So
never done that, but we both did something. I think we
something
all
really
do something
bad.
stupid though. We're
Yeah.
learning.
What property management software do you use?
Propertyware.
Oh, you're one of the few, the bold. All right.
I am.
I'm a big propertyware guy. That's how we actually met through RealPage and Property,
Yep.
and I'm a big fan of those guys. What is your current organizational structure for 500 plus units?
Current organizational structure, I have a director of property management. Actually, to be honest, I am changing my BDM and my property manager are changing because I did disc profiles on them again and they changed. And so I'm actually in the middle of changing them. But then we're pod structure. We're not, yeah, that's
Pod
what.
structure? Great.
Mhm.
Do you use virtual assistants? Yeah, a resounding
I
yes.
do.
And you have BDMs. All right. What is one piece of advice you'd give someone just starting out in PM? No doors, they're just starting out.
Don't call yourself a property manager.
Business owner or entrepreneur, like it.
Really get into that mindset of being a business owner and get out of the weeds and hire a coach if you need to make sure that they can help you stay on track.
I like that. Big, nice, good advice. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, yes, it does.
All right. Well, we were friends, but I'm gonna
We're not anymore.
let that one go by. What was your first job?
My first job, I worked in a warehouse. Actually, no, junior high. I used to go to the junior high and clean toilets.
Really?
My dad wanted me to know that no job was too good for myself, for me. So I used to clean toilets. And when we got into property management, I did it again.
All right. So so normally I ask if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? But I'm gonna ask you a little bit different one. If you could have anyone on your podcast, who would it be?
You know what? Uh, oh man, the owner of Ritz-Carlton or Walmart, either one of those. Walmart actually has a line to my family. My grandfather, my great grandfather and him actually almost started Walmart up together. But my grandfather wanted to start up Russell Newman, which was a manufacturing for lingerie for women instead. And so I would want to interview him.
Nice. What is one challenge you're currently facing in your business? I stumped you there, huh?
Well, you did because I think everything's evolving and changing. I'm always looking at,
So could it be
you know
that's
what?
actual the challenge is everything is evolving and changing?
I think, yeah, so and also making sure my team feels valued. That is my number one goal this year, is to make sure my team knows that they're my number one.
You prefer dogs or cats?
Dogs. Cats pee and stink.
All right, Tiff. If somebody wanted to follow you or get in touch with you, or if they even wanted to download your podcast that's coming out soon, how do they get in touch with you? How do they do all that stuff?
Instagram, Tiffany Rosenbaum, and then my email is tiffany@rosenbaumrealtygroup.com. And I'm always open. Any questions anybody asks me, I always respond to them.
Yeah, and Rosenbaum is with an S, not a Z.
Yes.
Okay. And if you're getting ready to hire your next architect, go to vpmsolutions.com. We have over 39,000 remote team members looking for work in the property management and real estate industry. And if you're not part of NARPM, why not? You're listening to our podcast. Join them, narpm.org, 800-782-3452 or info@narpm.org. Tiff, you're the best. Thanks for being on, and we'll talk to you
Thank you
soon.
for letting, thanks for letting me have me.
You got it.